All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and also the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the latest news and opinions surrounding the Boston Celtics from a lifelong fan, Steve. That pod drops new episodes every Monday, but this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content in Steve's 13 Rules random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts as the 2025-26 NBA season is over. Congratulations to the world champion New York Knicks. Now, before we get into it, if you're listening to this, we're grateful. Thank you. We are one of many of an independent, fan-driven shows on the Peach Basket Podcast Network. We're not owned by a big media company, which means what you hear comes straight from real fans who live the game every day, like Steve and I. If you believe voices like these should be heard, the best way to support us is simple. Keep listening, tell a friend, comment, subscribe. When this episode ends, head over to the Peach Basket Podcast Network.com, head over to the peachbasket.net. Find more fan-run podcasts, read some great articles, and help this independent network grow the way it started, organically, one Hoops fan at a time. All right, with that out of the way, Steve, are you ready to talk about the NBA Finals?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Okay, clock is ticking. And we're going to do this the same way we did it last week. We're going to break this down game by game. At the end of last week's show, I asked you if this week we would be talking about the NBA champions or if we would be talking about a great series going into game 7. You said this series is over. You were absolutely right. Let's take a look at the games that led us there. First off, just a couple of tidbits. This is the New York Knicks' third championship, first since 1973. A lot been made of that. The Knicks in the playoff run were 16-3. That would put them in the top 16 ever. Really great run. They were dominant. Only the Hawks beat them twice in any series. So, what's that say about the Hawks? I'm curious. Let's talk about that a little bit. But let's break this down game by game before we get into any rabbit holes. We'll start with game 3. Now, this is the one game that the Spurs won. And I think in looking back, it's the game where the Spurs did themselves a favor by not getting into this crunch time where they really did not fare well. But you called out one key thing in that game that the Spurs won, and that's that Wemby started by playing down low, playing down at the post, and it made a difference, didn't it, for the Spurs?
If we're going to find blame for this series, there's a lot of blame to go around, but I think Mitch Johnson shares in it for a lot of reasons. Offensively, there really wasn't a thought to how to play. It was more take the ball and do something, and that's not a good thing. And I'll talk about the end at the beginning. San Antonio had never developed a go-to person, and that's the whole series. Jalen Brunson's great, but they have nobody when the game is on the line that they can go to. And there's a couple reasons for that, but that's the bottom line. Yeah, it looked bad for San Antonio because they fell apart at the end, but that's, again, because nobody can go to the basket or can score. So it's fairly simple. And the other piece to it is Wembanyama is great. He's going to be the best. However, he needs to spend some time and become a shooter. He's not a great shooter. I saw him personally. I was at a game where he made 8 threes against Boston a couple months ago. Incredible. But that's not a consistent thing. He's very inconsistent as a shooter, and he's got to develop a go-to move. When you're 7'5", I think being close to the basket goes with that. So those are things that I saw in the series. And in game 3, you're right. They didn't have a situation where they needed something at the end and had to come up with something big. So they were able to survive that one.
Yeah. Lots to dissect there before we move to game 4. First off, just to show, I tweeted throughout the series the last couple of games just how close these two teams were. Check this out. Totally, across the 5 games, the Knicks scored 522 total points. The Spurs scored 510. It was on average 2 points separating the teams. was
Yeah.
amazing. The Knicks averaged 104, the Spurs averaged 102. This was probably one of the most intense 5 game series and fun games to watch between two evenly matched teams. The difference, and you said it, and I tweeted this, the Spurs were close, but they didn't have a closer. And that was everything, right? So I was on a walk last night and had this thought. I'm going to ask you, hypothetical. Switch Jalen Brunson and De'Aaron Fox. Okay? Jalen Brunson is now the point guard for the Spurs on this team, and De'Aaron Fox is the point guard for the Knicks on this team. How many games does it take before the Spurs win the championship?
First of all, I switch Jalen Brunson and Dillon Harper, and it'd be a 7 game series. If I switch with
Wow.
Fox, there's not a lot to say. $60 million dollars worth of, and he thinks he's much better than he is. He has no problem coming down and throwing up the ball. And if it went in, it'd be nice. For 60 million, you'd expect that, but it doesn't. And when he messed up game 4 going to the basket with that
We'll talk
silly
about
thing
it.
he tried.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Aaron Fox, he's not even their best 2 guards, one of the best 2 guards. That's the best way to put it. And I think San Antonio's got to do some soul searching on, do you keep him? Because Dillon Harper's got to play 35, 40 minutes a night. He's young and he's good. And
Yeah.
if Dillon Harper becomes a better shooter, I see, and this is crazy, but I was thinking about this. I see Shea Gilgis because he's unstoppable going to the basket, and that's what Shea was a couple of years ago. If he develops into the shooter, look out NBA because he'll be just unstoppable.
Yeah. Yeah, no argument from me. We're going to talk a little bit more about Wemby and what he needs to do to be better. And I want to call out his shot chart when we get there. But let's leave that
Okay.
aside right for now. Game 3, Spurs win. And all of a sudden, there was a little momentum, right? Because they played a good game and you thought maybe they figured this out, right? We all talked about the during the headlight moment for the Spurs. Maybe it's over, right? Game 3, they figured it out. And then they went to game 4. Now, before game 4, you and I talked about how what needed to happen, at least what I thought needed to happen for the Spurs, is they needed to punch this team in the mouth. They needed not to win a game, but to dominate a game, just to show, listen, we're here, we get this. And in game 4, they did that. I actually texted you, right? I think I texted you a picture of Rocky. I said they just drew blood. This is over. It's tied. Anybody who thought differently just wasn't watching the game. The Spurs absolutely dominated in what now we know is a tale of two halves. In the first half, the Spurs won 76-49. In the second half, inexplicably 58-30. The Spurs scored 30 in the half. Unbelievable. Encapsulate game 4 for me, and then we're going to talk about some details, 2 big details, but encapsulate game 4.
Well, I thought in the first half, the Knicks bubble was bursting because they have played way over their
Yeah.
head before that against Philly. And after game 3 against Atlanta, they had just gone on a streak and they were due to play, unless these guys were better than everybody thought, they were due to play some mediocre basketball. And that's what happened. In fact, during that game, if you remember, I never saw Mike Brown was just running 2 and 3 guys in at a time in the first half. And he was using guys like Jeremy Sohan, who never play. He was
Yeah.
using him. So there was a little bit of a panic there. And then in the second half, it all changed. Brunson got going. Don't forget, and I pointed it out, Stefan Castle had 5 fouls. So
Yeah.
one of the guys that can defend him was limited in what he can do. And Brunson went off and brought him back. And they just kept coming and coming at San Antonio. San Antonio offensively never got, in the second half, I guess, with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter to the end, they really never got the ball any deeper than the 3 point line. They very rarely went to the basket. They threw the ball around the perimeter and had nothing going. Now, we can criticize Mitch Johnson because there's got to be some sort of call or something you can run that might get you something that might be, instead of letting them play at that point, because they were calling for discipline. But they never really did anything. And naturally, when you shoot real well in the first half, the law of averages say you're not going to shoot well. And they were still hoisting the threes. I think they went something like 3 for 20 in the second half. So it kind of leveled
Yeah.
off. And that was important. Now you get to the end of the game. And if you want to take it from there, go ahead.
All right, let's talk about that unbelievable end of the game. Again, deer in the headlights moment. We talked about it, right? Is this inexperience going to impact the Spurs? And I don't think it was ever any more evident than at the end of game four. You could point to lots of different games, but in that moment, it was evident. And before we set it, or as I set up the De'Aaron Fox thing, and I definitely want your thoughts on it, I follow a few Spurs content creators on TikTok, and they had a really great split screen about the Spurs of Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan and Mario Elie and those greats, Tony Parker, and then De'Aaron Fox. Virtually the same information. Spurs were up in an NBA Finals. Manu Ginobili's got a kick out. He's wide open. He goes up. He could easily have laid it up, but instead, what does Manu Ginobili do? He dribbles around the basket. He dribbles all the way down the sideline. He makes, I forget the team they were playing, but he makes them chase him and foul him, killed 5-6 seconds, and then shot the 2 free throws and made them. High intelligent IQ play. And then we see what De'Aaron Fox did. All right. So the Spurs are up one. De'Aaron Fox has got a layup. It was a layup. It looked like a layup. We're all thinking it. De'Aaron Fox was thinking it. He makes it. They're up three with, I think, 19 seconds. I might have it
No,
wrong.
it's
I
about
was hoping
14
14
seconds.
seconds. So I get the thought process, but you got someone chasing you. You've got to have heard the footsteps. You got to know. And then again, going back to Manu Ginobili, what's the right basketball play here? Is it to take the 2
Well,
points, or is it
it's
to
funny.
dribble out the clock? Go ahead.
It's funny you're talking about that. In another life, I was a basketball coach of a high school team.
Sure.
And what we would do at the end of a practice would move the ball. We'd spread out in the 5 areas we broke down on the court, and each player took an area and moved the ball. If anybody shot the ball, I was all over them. Don't shoot the ball. Move the ball and let's get out of here. Now, on that particular play, De'Aaron Fox went, Anunoby chased him down and made the block. But if you looked at
Yeah.
the game, there was 4 Knicks in that part of the court, while no Spurs were with Fox. Fox should have dribbled it towards the corner, gotten fouled, and then put it's up to you. Instead, he decided to do that, and I think that kind of capped off the whole series for De'Aaron Fox. He just wasn't good, and it gave the Knicks life. You don't want to lose the ball; you want your possession. And I don't know what he was thinking. I'm sure in his career, from high school to pro, somebody said, "Don't shoot in that situation. Don't do it." And
Yeah.
when I saw it, I just like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And then Anunoby made a nice block. I thought for a second, because if you watch Fox come down, his body curves. It looked like he might have gotten hit, but then in the 2-minute report, it said no. So, but I thought he might have. But the point wasn't about being fouled as much as why are you doing that? So that was the key play. But now you get to the next one, which was even a bigger mistake when you think about it. Go ahead, with Mitch Johnson.
Are we talking OG at the end?
Yes, yes.
Let's talk. All right, let's talk about that. Unbelievable. The Spurs had the game. I think certainly their percentages go up if De'Aaron makes the right choice. He didn't, but they're still in the game, right? Brunson took what when I was watching the game, I thought didn't understand why he was taking that shot. Not that he couldn't make it. It was a Steph Curry three. It was a 4-point shot, but with so much time left on the clock. But there's a method there. If you miss, there's an opportunity for the offensive rebound. That's the thought process. I get it now, and obviously that's what happened for the Knicks. But everything's got to go right on that shot. First off, if you make it, great, but you left plenty of time for the Spurs, and I think at that point it would have been a 1-point game, no 2-point game if they would have made it. But regardless, you give the Spurs an opportunity to tie. But if you miss it, you've got to get that offensive rebound, right? If you got 50-50 shot, it's probably 75-30. 75-30, 75-25, whatever the math is, shot. I'm on a roll now and I'm not thinking math. But everything went right for the Knicks. The ball bounced off the rim. It was a perfect pass for OG, who just jumped hard than everybody else and tipped it in. So you wrote about it. I got to ask you, and I'm going to ask this pointed question: does OG get more credit for that tip in? And incidentally, Anunoby was phenomenal in that game. I think he had 30 plus. Or do the Spurs deserve more blame for not blocking him out?
OG gets credit because the ball went in. How many times you see somebody tip it, it goes off back rim, comes out.
Sure.
He deserves all that credit. The problem I have, there's more than 10 seconds left. When OG took the ball out, nobody was guarding him. Common sense, my mind said nobody's guarding him. I would take OG, step into the corner or somewhere quickly and get the ball back to him for a shot. Because by the time they recover and defend him, there's a problem. Nobody ever recovered and defended him. So here it is. Brunson's hoisting a 25 foot, whatever it was, long
Yeah.
shot. But here's OG, who's unimpeded going to the basket. Now, again, I go back. There's more than 10 seconds left. You can't do that. You have to guard because there's enough time for him to get the ball back offensively and score. Or what he did, tip it in because nobody's boxing him out. There's one more piece that was really interesting. Did you notice where Wembanyama was on the tip in? He was to the
Oh, he was
side.
guarding
Uh, he was on
Brunson,
the
wasn't he?
right
Guarding him?
side. He was on the right side. Now, of the basket. A big man in a situation like that, where should he be? Should be in the middle. So he can command both sides. And we've watched in the series how many times, because Victor's the biggest guy on the court, he was able to tap a ball to himself.
Yeah.
If he were in the middle, Anunoby wouldn't have been able to do that. So those were little things that went on that really, and you know what? I can talk about the Aaron Fox and Mitch Johnson, but the chances, if somebody said before all this started, when De'Aaron Fox first picked up the ball with about 17 seconds, whatever left, you would have said the chances of the Knicks winning this game are 5%, 10%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything had to go right. And Mitch Johnson made a few mistakes, but everything had to go right for the Knicks to pull that off. And they did.
Right.
And they did.
Right.
So that was the other piece. So in a way, and I am taking down Mitch Johnson and De'Aaron Fox, but boy, they didn't get much. They weren't lucky. Let's put it that way in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, and it's
So
important to note every NBA champion has had a little bit of luck. It certainly seemed like the Knicks had a lot of it, from the ball bouncing correctly for OG to a few other things. Again, this was a close game, not a close game, a close series, and a lot had to go right for that team, and everything did. But again, credit to them for pulling it off. All right, so OG,
I just want to add one thing that's really interesting. Mitch Johnson went in this series from another good young coach,
right?
to now, if San Antonio doesn't play well next year, he's in trouble. Really, the opinion of him has, I would think, in the NBA, moved in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, fair or not, that's absolutely true. You've got a guy who took his team, a young team, to the NBA Finals ahead of schedule. I don't think anybody denies that.
Right.
Beat the defending champions, right? These are all incredible accolades. But boy, man, when the pressure was on and the light was brightest, he made some bad decisions. And I think
Yeah.
the one he's getting the most heat from, and we've kind of skated around it, was the fact that he just stuck to De'Aaron Fox when he had somebody like Ron Harper's kid, right? Who was just the
Dillon.
second leading scorer, Dillon
Oh,
Harper.
yeah. He was great.
He was
He was
phenomenal.
great.
Now, he missed a couple shots at the end of game five. We got to talk about game five here in a minute. But why? Why did, and it's old school coaching, right? You go with the vet. You always go with the vet as opposed to the young buck. Right? But by the time you get to the NBA Finals, there's no rookies. These are all seasoned veterans. You've got to play the best player. Somebody tweeted, and I want to get your thoughts on this. If the San Antonio Spurs had played the best player, regardless of age, regardless of experience, if they just would have played the best players, they would have won the series. What do you think?
No, I think Over the course of a season, you're developing guys. You're probably 5 times, 10 times in a year. You come down to a last shot 5 times. You're developing something that you're going to do. I don't think San Antonio ever did that. And I think the whole series is wrapped around the fact that when the game was on the line at the end, San Antonio didn't know how to play it. The Knicks
Yeah,
did. Give it to Brunson, he'll make a play.
yeah,
Where San Antonio, one game they threw it to Wembanyama, and unfortunately he missed that shot from about
right.
17 feet, which he makes a lot. But
Yeah,
that might have been the best play you can use. But the point being, San Antonio never developed that. If we're watching a game and there's 10 seconds left and the Knicks have the ball, you know where it's going. You
yeah,
know, and you know what's going
right.
on. With San Antonio, you sit there and you wonder, what are they going to do? So go back to my initial point was about Wembanyama needs to become a better shooter because he can
Yeah,
take a shot on anybody in the league. Nobody's going to block him unless he
yeah,
stays on the ground. So he's got to become a better shooter. And in a situation like that, you just get him the ball and let him go. And that might be the smartest thing. Dillon Harper will get better as a shooter, and he'll be a great 1B player with him, as well as Castle will be.
yeah,
I don't, you didn't hear me mention De'Aaron Fox, did you? And the point being, that's what they have to do to take the next step. And you
yeah.
hope that a little bit of experience goes a long way.
Yep. Yeah, I tweeted again. LeBron lost at his first finals. Shaq lost at 23, his first finals, and Wemby's lost his
Right.
first finals at 22. Obviously, LeBron and Shaq went on to win multiple. I do not expect any different for Wemby. I think this is a guy who's going to lead his team to multiple NBA champions, assuming he's healthy. But they've got to learn from this. Now, let's take a look at Game 5 real quick because the clock is ticking. Game 5 was
Sure.
more of the same. The Spurs, and you wrote this, the Spurs played well. They had a lead. I think they led by double digits in every game of the series. They led in the last 2 minutes, 4 out of 5 games. They just
Right.
didn't have a closer. But at the end of the day, and you said it, experience won. Experience won. The Knicks were better when the game was on the line. The Knicks leaned on Brunson, and the Spurs just seemed disjointed. Now, I want to key it on one play in Game 5. Brunson takes, and the Knicks were fighting back. I think they had the lead. The Spurs took it back. I might be a little off, but I remember Brunson took a really tough fadeaway shot, well defended, high archer, and it missed. It clanked. And the ball's bouncing. And I think it was Stefan Castle, maybe it was Devin Vassell. He and Wemby were both there. Nobody else was there. I could have gotten that rebound, right? It literally was just falling to them. Inexplicably, they bumped into each other. I don't know what happened, but somebody touched the ball, and whether it was Vassell or Castle stepped on the sidelines. The ball goes back to the Knicks. They score. That's just inexcusable at that moment. This is the NBA Finals. That to me was a key play. Do you know what you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do. And you're right. It was. I didn't quite understand it when I saw it. Just get the ball and give it to somebody, and we start an offense. And it made no sense. I don't even know what to blame it on or whatever, but it just was. It was silly. So, yeah, and that probably cost them the game. But once the Knicks got the lead, you knew it was over because you
Yeah,
knew San Antonio can't answer. If it stays tied and San Antonio scores, of course, but once the Knicks get a lead, San Antonio can't answer it, and they didn't. They didn't. Harper missed a tough layup, and it kind of was the end.
that would have been so poetic, but we got more to talk about. I don't know if you heard the buzzer just went off there.
Yeah,
Or yeah, agreed. And again, Dillon Harper was phenomenal. He's going to learn from this. But yeah, he missed a tough layup. I think he missed a free throw that could have really, obviously, made all the difference in the world for the Spurs. But what a great young talent. This is a guy who's going to have a great future in San Antonio. But let's go back to what you said at the very start, and that was because when you talked about what the Spurs need now, you said three things. You said they need to find their offense, right? And you call that out great here. Mitch Johnson needs to learn from his mistakes. And I think the first half of next year is really going to tell what this guy's future looks like. But then you said Wemby has to be better. Now, Wemby led the team in scoring. He averaged 20 shots, and you and I talked throughout the season. He needs to be getting at least 20 shots a game. He averaged 20 shots in this series. But you said he has to be better. Now, I was a little surprised by that because I thought he was good. I get your point. But then I looked at his shot chart. This is amazing to me. First off, from the corners, he shot 0% from one corner. He shot 33% from the other, right? So not good. He took a total of 4 shots. From the furthest distance from three, he shot 27%, 8 for 29. Really bad. And then this is the part that just baffles me. At the low post, the league average down there, 66, 67%. Wemby shot 26 of 44 at the rim. How? How? It just boggles the mind. What was it? Was it Wemby suffered from deer in the headlights? Do we give credit to the Knicks defense? What do you think? You said Wemby's got to get better, but do we give a little bit of credit to the Knicks figuring him out?
No, they can't affect his shot. So he can do, unless he makes the mistake, brings the ball down, which he did, bringing it down, they slapped it away. But if he stays high with the ball, they're not touching him. And
Yeah,
the point being, he can't. The other thing that he's got to learn is it's just the rules of basketball in the game. And by that, this, if I'm playing against somebody who's more talented, the only shot I have is beat the hell out of him. So he's more talented. He's going to get beat up. And he's got to handle it. He's got to stay calm and play the game. I don't know
right.
if he can do that yet, and he's got to learn
Yeah,
that because when you're getting, and that's going to happen every time. It's going, you need to just play through it and just shut him. What Shaq did, just shut him up by just playing, and he didn't do that. Now, the other thing to think about when you have a 7'4" guy or five, whatever it might be,
yeah,
his if he took 25 shots and you took the distance of all the shots, if it was more than 150 feet total, in other words, the distance of a shot from the layup is a 1 footer and so on, if it's more than 100, that's not good. He's 7'5". He's got to get the ball down near the basket and say, come on, try to guard me. And he didn't do it. I understand coming out and shooting a three because it'll keep the defense honest. But you're at the end of a game. Get on the block. Get the ball
yeah,
and do something. And he two things he has to do. He has to get stronger. He needs to be bigger. And the other thing he needs to do is just become such a good shooter like most NBA players. And if he can't do that, and I believe he's going to be great, the greatest thing ever. But if he
yeah,
can't do that, we got a problem. Last thing I want to say, San Antonio themselves, obviously the future is bright, but they all have to look at themselves and say, after this series, who's the clutch player here? Because they
yeah.
didn't succeed in the clutch. And
Right.
either you get that through experience or you don't have a bunch of guys that are good clutch players. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, we got a problem.
Yeah, it's weird to think that a team that just played so well in regular season and in the playoffs has some tweaking to do, but they clearly have some tweaking to do.
Yes.
And I trust that franchise to do it right. All right, let's obviously the shot clock went off. This is the NBA Finals, man. We're going to talk a little bit more because I got two more questions I want to ask you. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. When the Thunder won, going back to when the Nuggets won, a lot of us thought this beginning of a dynasty. I'll be honest, I thought this was the start of a dynasty for the Spurs. I picked them to win it. But sometimes when you have a champion like that's what you talk about, especially if they're young. Obviously, the Spurs I think might still be that dynasty. The Nuggets were not. Nobody's talking about a dynasty with the Knicks. And I don't mean to take anything away from your championship, New York. You deserved it. Enjoy it. But nobody's talking about a Knicks dynasty. This was, and I hate to use the term, it's a bit of a one-off. Am I right?
If you go through it, first thing, probably the biggest factor here is Jalen Williams being hurt for Oklahoma against San
Sure.
Antonio, because that was a key thing. Don't forget, this guy is an All NBA player, and he didn't play, or when he did, he was ineffective because of his hamstring. So
Right.
before you get started, you got to take that in consideration. So San Antonio beat him. It took them 7 tough games, but they did beat him.
Yep.
Do you think it might have been the other way if Jalen was there? I kind of do, but that's the
Yeah.
first thing before you get started. Now, are the Knicks generational? I don't kind of see that. I think they're a good team. This is not, and I don't want to knock the Knicks. They won the title. But this is
Yeah.
not one of the teams you walk away and say this is like the 85, 86 Celtics. You're not going to say that. You're going to say
Or,
they
or,
won
or
the
the
title.
Lakers from the 80s, just to throw out another example.
I don't think they were as good. I thought the 86 Celtics were, in modern basketball, the best team that we saw. But yeah, naturally, you want to get the Lakers in. But they're good. They're real good, and you got to beat
Yeah.
them. And what the Knicks did, they played the best basketball of the season after game 3 against Atlanta. Any team that can do that is going to overachieve. Guys were shooting. OG Anunoby, who was great in the playoffs, he shot over 50% from three. That's
Yeah.
not that common. But if he does it next year, I'll be the first to say I was wrong. But they did so many things. Their defense was great. Landry Shamet, until the last couple of games, he couldn't miss. There were
Yeah.
so many things going on that were just working in their favor. And
Yeah.
naturally, Brunson's great, and he carried them. But I don't consider them one of the great teams of all time. But you
Yeah.
know what? They give them their due. They won the title
Yeah.
in a year where it was possible.
Yep, no doubt. Tipping our hat to the Knicks. They deserve it. But
Yeah.
there's some truth to that, no doubt. Now, I want to finish with this. I want to send a little love to Atlanta. Is it warranted? The Atlanta Hawks were up 2-1 against the world champion New York Knicks. Is the future bright for Atlanta, or was that just the Knicks figuring it out?
I think the Knicks in the first 3 games were playing like the Knicks of the regular season. And then all of a sudden, the Knicks figured some things out and they got hot. I think for Atlanta to become a good team, they need a big man badly because the 6'9" Okongwu just can't compete against Carl Anthony Towns, probably have a tough time against Embiid and all of the 7-footers in the NBA who can score. So that's one of the things they need to do. They do have the 8th pick in the draft, and they might take the kid Mara. Was he from Michigan, I believe? But if they do, he's still going to be a year or two away, and he's not that strong. But they need to do something about that problem to become a better team. And I don't. One last piece I'll say on the Hawks. Generally, a team wins a title when they have a guy in the top 10 in the league as your leader.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody on the Hawks is a top 10 player.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. All right, so a little love, at least for Atlanta. I think if I'm a Hawks fan, I'm loving the fact that my team beat this team twice.
Yeah,
You got to take the victories where you can get them. But you heard
no,
the
you're
shot
right.
clock go off, right? That is it. 2025-26 NBA season is over. It was a great one. Our time is up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules NBA Thoughts article, which we will link below, wherever you're watching or listening to this today. And yeah, join us next week. In years past, we've done an overtime show where we've interviewed referees, we've interviewed NBA world champions. Steve and I actually have not connected on what it is we're going to do this off season. We might take a week off. We might come back. I don't know, but follow us on the Peach Basket underscore on Twitter. Follow us at thepeachbasket.net. And whatever it is that we do, you'll know. And whatever it is that we do, we hope to see you there. But that is it. That is the end of the season. That's the end of our show, Steve. Another great year. Excited to do it again in 2026, 27. We'll talk again, maybe next week, maybe the week after, but we'll do something. All right. Thank you all. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.